A desperate housing crisis in Central Australia has prompted governments to commit close to $2 billion over 10 years to build hundreds of new homes. But millions have already been squandered. A construction firm has collapsed, leaving dozens of local businesses out of pocket, and it's raising new questions about how funding to help Indigenous Australians is being spent. Mike Sexton reports from Alice Springs.
Hidden Valley on the outskirts of Alice Springs is in desperate need. Like so many Indigenous communities in Central Australia, its houses, roads, drains, electricity and sewage systems need to be built or fixed after decades of neglect.
The levels of overcrowding, the poor state of Aboriginal housing, the lack of environmental health programs have all contributed, I think, to a number of critical issues, not least of which are, the well-being and the health of people living in those houses.
The work at Hidden Valley is part of an ambitious $1.7 billion Commonwealth and Territory-funded building scheme to reduce the rate of homelessness in the Northern Territory that's currently 17 times the national average.
We're going to see 750 new homes built, 230 new houses to replace other houses which will be demolished. Very importantly, 2,500 housing upgrades.
But at Hidden Valley and nearby Larapinta, work has been stalled by the multi-million-dollar collapse of a Queensland construction firm that's left businesses out of pocket and questioning the way the project is being run.
I'm a third-generation local, and I used to love this town, and to be quite honest, I've got a sour taste in my mouth now, and I don't hold much for the future of it, especially in the building industry, if this keeps going on.
When the federal and territory governments decided on the building plan, they outsourced the work to two groups of construction companies who form partnerships called alliances. One of them, named Territory Alliance, further subcontracted the work in Alice Springs to a firm called Maiden Civil.
We're the suppliers of concrete, and we're moving into the supply of road bases, aggregates, sands, and just general building materials of such.
Like many Alice Springs businesses, Andrew Lyons found work with Maiden Civil. But the tradesmen on site were not locals, rather they were fly-in, fly-out workers from the Sunshine Coast who used a motel as a kind of work camp.
They were here 3 weeks and they'd have 1 week off and then fly back in.
But in late July everything came to a halt as workers walked off the site. They hadn't been paid and neither had suppliers.
It wasn't to do with quality of work, it was more to do with financial considerations and our concern that they were then sort of asking us to pay more money in advance of work being completed, which we decided we wouldn't do that. And that brought us to the situation where we're concerned about their ongoing future.
Maiden Civil maintains the issues could have been worked through, but Territory Alliance says it has evidence of a serious cash flow problem.
We even paid $100,000 for wages for some of their employees that they couldn't pay at one stage, in excess of the work that they'd done to try and help them out. But even in late July, they were giving us undertakings and other creditors in Alice Springs that all was fine and that they would be able to complete the work. But only a matter of days later, we received notification that they were in receivership.
7:30 approached Maiden Civil CEO Scott McLean, but he says he's unable to speak publicly after receiving a letter from Territory Alliance lawyers threatening legal action. He still disputes the need to terminate the contract and intends challenging the decision. Maiden Civil is now in administration with debts upward of $5 million. For Andrew Lyons, it's depressingly familiar. This is the third different building company that's gone under, costing him money.
Arc Homes, which was doing remote housing projects out at Hermannsburg, they went down for $20,000. They owed loan me that $20,000. They owed a lot of other people a lot more. So it made it very hard. I had to settle some of my big yards and gear to bloody cover that one. And we just struggled to sort of catch back up, and now we're caught again. It was $160,000.
The businessman doesn't believe all blame lies with Maiden Civil, instead says there are entrenched business practices in Central Australia that need investigating. It's a theme picked up by Olga Havnen, who, as the Northern Territory's Coordinator General, monitors the delivery of government services. Her recent report details much progress in public housing construction, but she questions the use of fly-in, fly-out contract workers, especially for ongoing maintenance.
It would make much more sense to actually have that staff based in communities themselves where you have local providers and suppliers, be it electricians, tradesmen, perhaps even semi-skilled people who could do really basic repairs and maintenance. It would do two things if we adopted that model. One would be local employment, and secondly, I think you'd reduce the cost of the maintenance program quite substantially.
Hello again. How are you? Nice to see you.
A spokesperson for Indigenous Affairs Minister Jenny Macklin says 2 independent reviews of the overall housing program have found the management is strong and that the program's on track and on budget. Others believe there are lessons to be learnt from the experience in Hidden Valley.
If we're simply going for the lowest possible price, then I suspect you're going to end up with more problems. So we've got to be realistic about what those costs are and try to put in place the appropriate project management and supervision arrangements that would ensure that you get project completion on time, within budget, and without the kinds of hardship that clearly this particular project collapse has caused to many of those contractors and subcontractors.
Territory Alliance has recontracted the work at Hidden Valley and says it will be completed by Christmas. But with many projects ahead, those working for improvement in impoverished communities hope such problems are rare.